Hello everyone. Today is the 16th video of my database management systems practical video series. Today I'm going to do the sixth video of database management systems day 4 question list. This is also going to be the 16th video of 16th question of the question list. Let's go to our question and read that first. Here you can see we completed question 15 and now we have to do the question 16. Let's read this question first. The mark of the term examinations of the marks of the term examinations of the Kaluvilla Junior College are still recorded in books. Because of this, the principal has to spend a lot of time when he needs to check the marks of the students. Therefore, the principal has decided to include the term marks of all the students studying in his school in a computer system. The software was developed by a software development company called AI Soft. The software should be able to store all student terms, scores, and student assessment scores. The principal has decided to develop this software to include the marks of students in grade 11 as the first stage of this software. You work as a senior software engineer at this company. You and your team are asked with creating the database here and the SQL query used to provide the following requirements. Okay. Here we have to create a new database for a school to store their details of students and their marks. Let's read that's the context, and let's read our questions. Create a database named exam marks db to store students marks. Use the diagram to create this database. Okay, you can see there are a lot of requirements we have to gather, or we have to store in our database. That means we have to create more than one table in our database. That's why we are using diagrams. If we use that method, that will be easy and efficient to store our data inside our database. So let's go to our software. When we are creating, or we are drawing diagrams, there's only one software that supports creating diagrams. That's the official software called Workbench. Here's the software. Here you can see the welcome page of the MySQL Workbench. And here's the connection to our server. I'm going to click on that. Okay, we logged into our server, and here you can see our previous databases we created, and I'm going to create a model. In this software, the diagrams are also called the models. And here you can see under the file tab, here's the new model. Okay, now we have to rename a database or define a database, and we are going to create an diagram for that database. So I'm going to right click on the database name and then edit schema. Okay, here you can see we can rename our database by renaming this value. I'm renaming this value to, let me go to the question. Here we have to create a database called exam marks db to store student marks. Okay, let's rename this to exam marks db. Here we renamed our database, and then let's create a new model inside our database. For that, there's a button called add diagram, and I'm going to click on that button. You should right click on that button, and here's our workspace. This is the place we are going to create or draw our database, draw our diagram. And here you can see the tools. We use these tools in my previous videos. If you don't know about these tools, you can check that videos first. uh, let's go to the question. We completed the first part, and here's the second part. Create a table named student to store students data. Create the table according to the instructions below. Okay, we have to create a table inside that database we created, and it's called it named students. Here you can see the attributes inside that table, or the relation. Index number is the first one, and it's going to be the primary key. And here's the data type. It's going to store a varchar value, that means a string value, and is the character length that defines how many characters are stored in a single cell of the in that of that attribute. And here are the other attributes: first name, last name, gender, and contact number. You can see this table is going to store the records about students, so their names and their gender, and the contact number, like that. So let's create this table in our diagram first. Here you can see here's the table, new table button. By using this button, we can create a table inside our workspace. Click on this button, and then click anywhere in the free space, and then here we created our table. You can edit this table by right click on the table and then edit table. Okay, here I'm going to rename this to student, and uh, here are the attributes we have to create in this table. First one is index number, then first name, last name, gender, contact number. Okay, here I'm creating the first one, index number, and then I will change the data types after we created all the attributes. Is the second one, first name, last name, then the contact number, then the gender, and in the last one, contact number. Okay, I'm changing the data types. Here I'm changing the data type of the index number to varchar, and change the length to 10. Okay, here you can see the first one is automatically defined as the primary key. The Workbench software automatically defines the first attribute as the primary key. There are other softwares, uh, but in those softwares we have to define that manually. Okay, here's the first name and last name. The data type and the lengths are okay, and here's the gender and contact number. We have to change the length to 10. Okay, here's the length of the gender and the contact number. Okay, I'm adding additional part. I'm going to check all the checkbox of the attributes, the not null checkbox of the attributes. That means that these attributes are not going to store null values by default when there's no value inputted by the user. Okay, here we completed our first table inside our diagram, and also we completed the second part of the question. Here's the third one. The school has to create 11 classes. Create a table called class and uh, class to store details of those classes. Okay, we have to create a table to store classes, details about classes like class names. Here you can see the guidelines to create this table. The table name is class, and then here are the attributes. There are only two attributes inside this table: class ID and the class name. Class ID is is the primary key, and it's also going to be auto incremented. And then here's the data type int. You have to keep this in mind when if you are selecting auto increment or uh, defining the auto increment option to the primary key. The data type should be a numeric value, and also it should be it's suitable you uh, define the data type as int or integer value. Okay, here's the second one, class name, and then here's the data type varchar, and character length is 45. Let's create this table. I'm going to create a new table by click on the place a new table button, and here we created our table. I'm changing the name to class. Okay, here are the attributes, class ID and class name. uh, I explained this part in my previous video. You don't have to uh, check the primary key. Just you just need to check the auto increment option, and then here's the second attribute, and also the last attribute, class name. And now it's going to store a string value up to 45 characters in a single cell. Okay, here we created our second table, class. And here's the fourth one. We completed the third one. Create a table called subject to store the subject taught in the school. Subjects taught in the school. Create the table according to the instructions below. Okay, we have to create a table to store the subjects which are taught in the school. So let's create this table now. You can see in in this whole question we have to create the tables. Only we have to create the tables of our ER diagram. I think this question will be the start of a question series or a video series. Let's create this subject table. uh, Here are the attributes, subject ID and subject name, and the subject ID is also going to be auto incremented. Okay, yes, here I created a new table and then edit uh, subject. Okay, here's the first attribute, subject ID. Mhm. And then I'm going to auto increment this one. And here's the last one, subject name. Okay, we created the subject table, and let's go to our question. We completed this one, the fourth one, and here's the last part of this question. Create a table with the term name, exam term, to store the term test in the school. Create the table according to the instructions below. Okay, we have to create another table for store the details about the examination terms in this school. So here's the table. The table name is exam term, and then there are three attributes in this table: term ID, term name, and exam date. Okay, here's the term ID is the primary key, and it's also going to be auto incremented like in the previous tables we created. And the data type is int, and here's the second one, term name. The data type is varchar, and length is 45. And here's the last one, exam date. It's going to store, when we are storing a date value, we use the data type date, uh, because when we define that date data type, it will only store the date format, the values as the date format, like years, then months, and then the date. Okay, let's create this one. Term ID, term name, and exam date. Sorry. Here's our program workbench, and then let's edit this new table. I'm changing the name to exam term. Okay, here's the first attribute, term ID, and it's going to be auto incremented, and also it's the primary key. Here's the term name, and then here's the exam date. Okay, let's change the data types. The data type of the two attributes, term ID and term name, are okay by default, and then exam date, we have to change the data type to date. You can see here's the data type date, and I'm checking the not null option to the exam date. Okay, here we create our fourth table in our database, and also it is the last table we have to create in this question 16. We completed this question, and I think that's it for this video, and let's see you in this next video. Thank you very much for watching.